Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reaction series, and specifically the Arsenal News Show. I'm looking at plenty of interesting stories, including some names that I never thought would throw up, especially in a descriptive sense, and especially talking about some players for the under fives, believe it or not. That's the level of detail that we're going to in today's show. It's incredible what's going on at the Arsenal with these recruitment. Per Mertesacker is finding some gems that we won't actually see for another 15 years, which makes me feel incredibly old. The fact I'm thinking about that, I'll be in my 40s when we see some of the players we're going to talk about today. Incredible scenes. Good morning to everybody in the chat box. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're well. Kaiser, Colin, Bungle, Tariq. We've got Ransom. We've got Wrath of Aries, Jonathan, Steve, and Matt G, PDG. We've got Running with Skizzer. We've got Tony. We've got Olu, Answer, Tom, Big O, and plenty more of you guys as well. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning and continuing to make this part of your morning routine. If you could drop a like on the show, I would really appreciate it. We did a preview show to the Aston Villa game this evening. I'm looking forward to being there this evening as well. We're looking forward to having a couple of drinks at the Tollington. We're a few mates beforehand. Hope to see some of you guys there as well. And, put names to faces as always. Looking forward to that. We did that preview show yesterday, so please make sure you check that out. We were inundated with a few Aston Villa fans who decided to think it was funny to drop a load of dislikes on the video. So your job, if you haven't already, go over to the preview, drop a like on that video and show the Aston Villa fans why they didn't get hold of Emile Smith-Rowe. That is your job today. Of course, please do drop a like on today's video and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. If you could go over and subscribe to the Arsenal Way. Oh, I'm seeing there's a new button on my screen. Oh, this is new. Look, I'm in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. This is different. I don't like it. Moving on to our first story of the day, though, we start with Bukayo Saka and the news surrounding his injury. Of course, Mikel Arteta discussed in yesterday's press conference about Bukayo Saka. He wasn't particularly optimistic. He says he hasn't trained yet. So again, we have to assess him today and see how he is. My prediction will be that he'll likely be on the bench this evening. He's probably not going to be on from the start, which does open up the opportunity for players like Gabriel Martinelli to possibly get an opportunity in the Arsenal first team. He could also choose to go with Aubameyang and Lacazette. We will wait and see to see what happens. Yes, Richard. Tiny Tom indeed. I don't know why it makes me go so small. Hello down here. That's really funny. If you're watching or you're listening on audio-only platforms, basically, there's a new button where I can put myself into the bottom left-hand corner of the screen and look exceptionally tiny, which is a first. Moving then, despite what many people may think, moving on to our next story, Mark Overmars, former Arsenal winger, Ajax executive, and very much integrated into kind of their whole thought process around recruitment and signings. He's being linked with a move to Newcastle, believe it or not. Newcastle making moves in their approaches for certain executive and managerial personnel. We know that Paulo Fonseca, looking very likely, if not already, to have become the Newcastle manager to take over from Steve Bruce. Mark Overmars is being targeted now as a possible executive to bring in to help with their recruitment policy in the future. Making big moves are Newcastle. We can expect them to see them pushing up the table as soon as feasibly possible. Now, I did promise you we were going to talk about the next Lionel Messi, and Arsenal have signed on a 5-year-old, Zayn Ali Salma. Now, he's a bit of an Instagram sensation, is Zayn, and you may have seen some clips and videos circulating through your social feed. Zayn has been playing against kids more than twice his age, which I know at 4 is not a massive gap, but it's still incredibly impressive. And Arsenal have gone in and signed this 4-year-old Zayn. I mean, look at the kid's face. That's the kid's dream, isn't it? That's your dream when you're a little kid. You want to play for Arsenal, and Zayn has certainly achieved that. So a massive congratulations to Zayn, and we wish him the absolute best. And maybe when I'm in my 40s, I'll still be doing the 8 a.m. show and talking about him again. Unbelievable scenes, really, when we consider the fact that he's only 4 years old, that we're talking about a player signing for the club. But that's how these big clubs work these days. Now, Dean Smith has been speaking ahead of the game and talking about Emile Smith-Rowe and the failed attempt to sign him this summer. Talking about him, he said he's a good footballer. I think everyone can see that. He decided to stay at Arsenal. Arsenal's a big football club in its own right. He's a good player, and we want good players at this football club. I mean, Dean, you had no chance of signing Smith-Rowe. Smith-Rowe never wanted to sign for Aston Villa. There was no hope of Aston Villa getting hold of Emile Smith-Rowe. Probably why all those salty Aston Villa fans came into our preview show yesterday to drop a dislike. Still a bit sad, isn't it? Still a bit sad. He probably needs to get over the fact that they missed out on him. It is what it is. We continue on, and I mean, Arsenal are a big team in their own right and much bigger than Aston Villa, it's fair to say. So I'm not surprised that Emile Smith-Rowe stayed, and fingers crossed he can get a goal and do a little bit of a Cup to the Year celebration, or a little bit of a shush celebration maybe in front of the Villa fans. That would be absolute perfection. So fingers crossed, maybe we see something like that later on this evening. Now, I wrote a piece yesterday over on football.london talking about Arsenal and Newcastle's interest in Dominic Calvert-Lewin, talking about how Arsenal have the opportunity here to win the first transfer battle between the two sides. We know that Arsenal are linked and are interested in Dominic Calvert-Lewin. We know that Newcastle are very interested in Dominic Calvert-Lewin as well. And if Arsenal are going to not allow and block Newcastle from trying to reach the heights they want to, then they need to start winning the transfer battles for targets that both teams have. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin has drawn that first battle line as one of the key targets for both teams. In the summer, where it is more likely that a deal for Dominic Calvert-Lewin would take place, we will see whether or not Arsenal can beat Newcastle to this signing. We will wait and see, but there is interest from both sides, which does cause a little bit of a stir as to who might win the race first. And bringing us on to our final story of the day, Alexandre Lacazette has again been linked with a move to Inter Milan. In fact, Inter Milan are reportedly set to offer him a deal worth as much as 4.5 million euros a year to take him on what we expect to be a contract length for around 3 years. No talk about how much they would offer Arsenal in January. You don't expect it to be loads, considering the fact that he only has 6 months left on his deal. But it does put Arsenal into a very difficult situation. It's a difficult situation because Arsenal will be without Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang for quite a large portion of the January period, meaning that he will miss a fair few games. If you then sell Lacazette and don't bring someone in, you're then left with Eddie Nketiah, who could also leave in January, following Balogun and Gabriel Martinelli as your really only options to take up that striking department. We've got some big games against the likes of Manchester City, against Tottenham Hotspur. We've got some big games. We've also got cup games as well that we'll need to rotate for. So selling Lacazette at the beginning of the January window is not going to be the most smart thing to do. Now, Mikel Arteta was asked several questions about Lacazette in yesterday's press conference. On his contract running down, he says, is it the situation that we have? We have to accept it. I cannot ask anything for the player, the way he is dealing with the situation, and it is not an individual situation because it has a knock-on effect as others we have to deal with in the past, and we have to see what the best option will be for everyone at the end of the season, which is a bit of a convoluted sentence and doesn't tell us a lot, really, on the kind of like, were they willing to offer him a new deal and whether he would like him to stay. He says, well, he's our player and I treat him like any other player, not because he has a year left or doesn't have a year left. I'm not going to treat him differently, and that's what he deserves. Again, a very political answer from Mikel Arteta. And then finally, on whether Mikel will say if Lacazette will be starting on Friday, he says, obviously, you know that I will not do that, trying to avoid every possible avenue of answering a question. And just one last point on this press conference. He was also asked about James McArthur and why he wasn't sent off Arteta says, no, they didn't get an explanation. We had a communication with the referees and the association to try and explain why they didn't intervene in that action. The explanation we had at the start of the season is that they would when there is an obvious error there. They need to take action, and they didn't. These actions determine a football match and the result, and for me, it's unacceptable. And now we know that Mike Dean is not taking part in supposedly Premier League action this weekend. Whether that's a punishment or just being given the weekend off is ridiculous. I don't think that's accountability. I think accountability, it's not about giving fines to people. I think people asking for Mike Dean to be fined is a bit ridiculous. But what I do think is that he should be continuing to work, but they should relegate him to the Championship for a weekend or relegate him to the Football League for a weekend. That's what they should be doing. It shouldn't be about suspending a referee. It should be demoting them down to a different level. It doesn't help Arsenal in any way, but it does show some accountability. Giving him a week off work is not exactly what we want, is it? So it's a shame. It's nothing that can help Arsenal, but at least there was something that happened, I suppose, as we can look at it from the bright side of things, but it's frankly not enough. Finding him would have made little sense. I mean, the context of a job, he's not a footballer, he's a referee. If you make a mistake in your job, you're not getting fined for it. So it's a little bit of a hyperbolic sort of reaction to that. But being relegated and demoted into a different level of the field, we'll see if that happens. Christopher says Mike Dean should have got a red card. And I mean, he practically has done. He's got a one-match suspension from the looks of things, isn't taking part in action this week. So we'll wait and see. What about VAR, says Chris? No idea why VAR wasn't involved, although there was rumours that Mike Dean isn't the biggest fan of having his decisions overturned by VAR. So there you go. That does continue all of the rest of the news of the day. So if you do have any questions for the final part of today's show, please do throw them into the chat box, and I'll try my absolute best to answer them for you. Just while you're getting those into the chat box, I've realized how ridiculously dark my camera is right now. Let's see if we can do something about that. So if you do have any questions, thoughts, or theories and queries, do throw them into the chat box, and we'll go through as many of them as feasibly possible. Let's bring this blind down so our green screen's not looking as weird. Okay, let's jump in. Art says, why did Saliba get a 3 in Get French Football News match ratings even though he kept a clean sheet? Haven't seen the game, mate. I know that they played 0-0 against Lazio last night. I've not seen the game, so I can't comment. We will be catching up with Ben from the Marseille View at the end of the month to give us lots more insight on how Saliba's got on this month, how he's kind of progressed from last time out. And I look forward to covering all that information as well. Jamie says, hi, Tom. Would you rather we signed Isaac and Basuma or DCL and Fabian Ruiz? DCL and Fabian Ruiz would be my choice. I'd prefer DCL. I wouldn't say I prefer Fabian Ruiz. I like him and Basuma, but Fabian Ruiz is a brilliant, brilliant footballer. So I would go for DCL and Fabian Ruiz personally. Mike says, how much are you looking forward to our 3-man embrace tonight with you, me, and Owen? I mean, as much as I can feasibly avoid, I end up going to the pins, Mike, to be honest. I think that might be the route that I take, take the members with me, of which Owen is one. So we'll get him out of there swiftly. John says, any truth in the rumour that the academy is starting the future embryos of Messi, Henry and Zidane, says John. I mean, you wouldn't put it past them, John, at this rate. It's getting ridiculously young with the scouting that's going on. Signing 4-year-olds, I mean, incredible. We're signing embryos now as we're signing fetuses, as Mike would say. Terry says, Osimhen or Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I haven't seen enough of Osimhen, to be honest, but I know he's absolutely smashing it in Italy. It would be difficult to sign Osimhen, but I think I'd still pick Calvert-Lewin because the price of Osimhen, you'd probably be looking at upwards of 100 million because they paid like 70-odd million for him in the first place. Philly Gooner says, Aronson from Salzburg, how do we get him? Usually what you do is you go to a club and you say, I want your player. They go, okay. They either say, do one, or how much do you want? Or rather, how much you're willing to pay. And then you offer an amount of money and you try and buy the player, Philly Gooner. So that's how you would get him. Whether they would sell him is another thing, though. Art says, would you rather... Well, I would be playing Would You Rather this morning. Is that what we're doing? Arteta or Koeman? To be honest, Koeman's doing a terrible job at Barcelona, so I'm not sure I would choose him over Arteta at the moment either. Chris says, would you rather have Dean Smith over Arteta as manager? I mean, Dean Smith's done a great job with Aston Villa. You can't deny that. So I think he's progressed them, and I want a coach that wants to progress. I want a coach that wants to progress and, put forward his side. So there you go. Mint, why do fans ask such stupid questions? I don't know, Mint. Why do you put such abusive messages into my chat box? See you later. Gameboy says, didn't Arsenal sign Leo Messi? They did indeed. I think, how old was he? Like 8 or 9? So it's Per Mertesacker is taking his job, as you would expect, very seriously. Mad G says, Mike Dean, wouldn't demoting him to the Championship for a weekend be disrespectful to that league? You're not good enough to the ref for the Prem, but it's okay in the Championship. Not really, Matt. I mean, it's a level below the Premier League. I mean, it is insulting for the Championship to have Mike Dean in it. But no, I don't think that it's insulting at all. It's just what happens. I mean, you think about teams in the Premier League. If you're not good enough for the Premier League, you get relegated. Does that mean that it's an insult to the Championship to have teams that aren't good enough for the Premier League in it? No, it's just part and parcel of the game. So there you go. Bro Pro says, do you prefer Erdegaard or Sambi as an 8 for now? I think I prefer Sambi, only because Sambi has said outright that he is a number 8 more so than a number 6. And I think that Erdegaard needs to be given more of an opportunity in an outright number 10 role, while we don't really have the number 6. I don't look at Partey as a 6. I think Clive and Lewis highlighted this on yesterday's preview show. Clive on the AVP said that Arsenal basically have Partey and Lokonga who are 8s, and Smith Rowe and Erdegaard who are 10s, and we don't really have a number 6. I mean, maybe El Neni, but even then, he's not an outright number 6. So Arsenal lack that outright CDM in this. Even Granit Xhaka is not a defensive midfielder. He's a deep line playmaker. So we don't have a CDM. We haven't had a CDM since, I'm trying to think, I mean, arguably Torreira, and then we completely messed him up. And before that, you have to go back as far as maybe someone like Gilberto Silva or Coquelin. So we just have lacked that outright CDM for quite a while in the Arsenal first team. Dan Roberts says, do you prefer Aaron Ramsdale or Aaron Ramsey? Don't get these would you rather questions. Aaron Ramsey, I mean, obviously, he's won 2 FA Cups for Arsenal. Ramsdale's been here for, 5 games? So it would be a bit weird to pick him. So there you go. Richard, I don't really look at El Neni as a CDM. I look at him as kind of, again, he's not an outright number 6 for me. He does. You look at how he pushes forward at times. He just kind of plays as a slow box-to-box midfielder. I don't really look at him as a CDM. Colin says, Tom, do you think that Leno's seemingly lack of stomach to fight for his place may deter potential buyers? And does this vindicate the decision to pay the fee for Ramsdale? I mean, it absolutely vindicates it. If anyone was ever any kind of apprehensive about signing Ramsdale, getting rid of Leno from the first team squad has definitely proven to be the right thing based upon a lot of the comments that he has made. So there you go. Possibly Alex Song, Safiso. I mean, the amount of, again, he was very much a forward-thinking player as well with the passing that he had in his locker. So an outright CDM, I'm not so sure. Outright CDMs, I'm trying to think of ones throughout the world. You look at players like Kimmich, you look at someone like, I was going to say Casemiro, but even he gets forward. But I still look at Casemiro playing behind the Kroos and Modric in that role. Sergio Busquets, I mean, they're the kind of outright CDMs that I think of when you think of the outright CDMs. But I suppose in the modern era of football, defensive midfielders do tend to have a lot more about themselves going forward. So there is that. And maybe I'm too binary to think of a CDM as just someone who sits in front of that back four, and maybe a CDM needs to be a lot more than that in this day and age. Oakley said, who is the best CDM in the Premier League at the moment to you? I mean, I love Rodri, and he doesn't play enough still for Manchester City. Rodri has always been a brilliant player. Fabinho is up there as well. I mean, Manchester United don't really have Fred still gets forward. McTominay, I suppose, still gets forward as well. Looking at Chelsea, Kante. People tell me that Kante is not a CDM. So it's up there with saying that Kante can become more of a box-to-box, and they like to play Jorginho in the more deeper role. And you could argue maybe Jorginho is that best CDM in the team. So Fernandinho's a little bit past it now. I get you, but... I get you. There you go. I've just got that. I'm sorry if that's your actual name, but it's not actually a play on words, but it sounds like a play on words in my mind. But I get what you're saying. So there you go. BTG says, would you want Karim Adeyemi from RB Salzburg? He has 4 goals in 3 Champions League games. Could he be another gem like a Haaland, Mane, Szoboszlai? I mean, it's not he could be. He is. He is the next big thing from RB Salzburg. He is very much already in the minds of a lot of big European clubs. He's already got a senior German cap, despite being 19 years of age. He's the next one that's coming through. And beyond that, I mean, Salzburg just keep on developing these amazing talents. And Arsenal never really take advantage of it. We nearly did with Szoboszlai. We didn't in the end. It is what it is. I'm still not over it, as you can probably tell. But it is what it is. So fingers crossed Arsenal can finally start to take advantage of some of the guys that are coming through the ranks in the Austrian league, that is for sure. One of the best things that Salzburg are able to do is because they don't have the same restrictions on work permit as like the English clubs do, is a lot what Salzburg do is they go into Africa and they go into a lot of the African nations. They go into Zambia in particular. I mean, Zambia, they signed up Enoch Nwepu, Patson Daka, and recently they signed up 3 Zambian kids from a high school that are very highly rated as well. I think that was about a year ago. So it's incredible what they do with the African football market, Salzburg, but they bring through some amazing players. Mane, Naby Keita, Haidara. Like, they just keep on bringing through these amazing African footballers and make a lot of money from it. So fair play to them. And again, Arsenal do desperately need to take advantage of that market. Ranson says, am I confident about the game tonight? No. I mean, I wrote an entire thread on Twitter about this. I'm just not confident about the game. I'm not confident about Arsenal games in general right now. I want that confidence back. I want to be confident again. I want to be in a situation where I go into the next game not needing to worry about the opponent, but just know that I've got confidence that Arsenal are going to put on a good performance. That's all I want in an Arsenal team again. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. Now, we're getting some really silly questions in the chat box, which is always my sign to wrap things up. Thank you so much for tuning in, people. I look forward to joining a few of you at the Tollington this evening, and make sure you join us there. There'll be plenty of us. Mike, I know, is going to be there. Owen, Judges. Tom, I think, is dropping by, one of our regulars as well on the podcast too, and a few of the members are as well, and all the usual lot will be there too. So I look forward to that. If you're not watching the game in the stadium, enjoy it from your own comfort of your own house and in the warm. It's not going to be warm this evening, that's for sure. Going to be wrapping up very warm indeed. But it's always a pleasure to speak to you guys. Make sure you watch our preview show from last night and help support the battle against those Villa fans that invaded with loads of dislikes. So go over to the preview and drop a like on it if you haven't already. Drop a like on this show if you've enjoyed it as well. And subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. We will have a tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. will be the reaction show. There won't be one tonight because I'm at the game. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. will be the reaction to the Villa game. So make sure you tune in tomorrow morning at the normal time. See you soon, guys. Have a fantastic day. And as always, up the Arsenal.